Welcome to the podcast. Catch It, a New Perception. My name is Ketuk. I welcome you if this is your first time listening. I welcome you back if you have heard some of these before. If it is your first time, I encourage you to go back to the beginning and listen to the first episode moving forward. Listen to them in order. And you may get something more out of the podcast as a whole rather than just listening to bits and pieces of different podcasts or listening to them in a different order. Because there may be certain things that I'm moving forward with that I once discussed that I won't talk about in the same type of detail. And then there's other things that I may use the same type of detail. I will continue to discuss, and I will continue to change certain terminology and still say the same thing. And then there's other times where I will use the exact same terminology I used before. This is a podcast all about being able to change the way we think and the different processes we will go through to be able to change the way we think through our actions, through our terminology, through changing our subconscious, the way we treat others, what we do for others. Today I'm thinking a little bit about volunteering and what that can do for the way that one feels. Now, my own experience with volunteering, I have done a fair amount of it on a regular basis at one Elders Center for over 10 years, just a little over a decade at one particular place. I volunteered at a local mission, one of the divisions at one of the local missions for a number of years. And I went in there often with an elder. And it was nice that a couple of us could go in and do something together. And some of that process of volunteering is showing other people that are there that we give our time. We are not paid volunteers. We do not get any monetary value out of it. It's all about showing up and doing what we can for another human being. Often, people we've never met before. People we may never see again. Just showing up and taking some action to help other people. If you've never done this, I encourage you to. If you want to change the way that you feel about yourself. Change your self-esteem. I believe the best way to elevate self-esteem and change how we feel when we don't think much of ourselves and we're feeling not so good about who we are is to do esteemable acts. Do something for someone else and don't let anyone know you did it. Volunteer not so that you can go tell everyone, oh, I volunteer here and I do this and I do that and look at me. Go volunteer because people need your help. Because you may reach one individual one time and you could impact their life. And what if that person impacted the world? You could do things volunteering that you cannot do in any other fashion. I truly believe that when you take the time to give your time, to give your energy, to give your emotion, to give your ability to do something, expecting nothing in return, no glorification, no look at me, I did this, none of that. Just give of your time to other people. I think it's a good thing to talk about in the right energy. It's not that you shouldn't tell anyone you volunteer. I don't want to do it barrel-chested, acting like I'm something special, you know what I do for people. No. I share it with people to tell them that it's a good thing. those people that we reach out to could use more people, maybe like you, helping them. So I share it to encourage other people to maybe do the same type of thing. Volunteer. To start out volunteering, you may want to do it with something that's close to your heart. Volunteer with some social club that you appreciate, or volunteer with your church or the temple that you go to, or if you're in a sacred circle, you have something that matters to you. Volunteer to help people, to be part of, to reach out. The one thing I learned a number of decades ago, as I began to volunteer and reach out to other people, I cannot concern myself with how much I may help people. Because if you receive any help, it has to do with where you're at and how you opened your heart, you opened your mind, and you were able to receive. All I can do is reach out. I can't actually help you. And this is my whole point to the podcast, that if you're going to get this help, you're going to receive it. You're going to get this help because of what you do, not because of what I do or what I don't do. You're going to get the help through volunteering because of the action that you take. The people you are willing to look in the eyes and offer them something. Now, you may use the term help different than I do, and I get that, and you may talk all about how you help people, and that may work very well for you. I don't want to come across arrogant. I've spoke of this before. I don't think it looks good on human beings, and I know it doesn't look good on me. I want to come across like I'm here. I'm showing up. Is there something I can do? Do you want to let me know what I can do for you? I'll see if I can help. Sometimes people don't know what you can do for them, and you just need to help. One friend of mine, he likes to volunteer at an elders center where his father was. And he started out going to visit his father. And as his father passed over, returned to the spirit world, whatever terminology you use for someone as they pass on, his father had left in human form. And he continues to volunteer at that same elders center. Just shows up. You can tell when he talks about it, he feels good about what he does. He often, the majority of the time, he has a smile on his face when he's saying it. I think he can feel what they feel when he offers his time to them. And then he conveys that as he's talking about it. And he's not all barrel-chested and acts like he's something special. It's not like that. He just says it in a good way with a smile on his face, and he's happy he can bring joy to someone else's life for even a moment. So if we live for memories and emotions, and what we're trying to do is change the way we feel, so our emotion is something we can live with. Let's create some memories on the way. As we go through life, let's create some memories that are worth sharing with the next generation. What if we live to be elders to numerous generations? Can we continue to share those stories about how we have been reaching out to others, willing to help others for generations on end? I remember when I was helping your father. I remember when your grandfather was young and we spent time together, and I did what I could for your grandfather. Wouldn't that be amazing for you to experience that? for you to be able to help generation after generation after generation. Because you reached out, you were able to help. Now the help may be in physical, it may be in action, it may be conversation, it may be playing board games with people, taking time with them. As I would say sometimes, as simple as taking time with another human being. Sometimes it may be more physical work. You may be cooking for someone, preparing a meal. What an honor it is to share a meal with someone, to sit down across the table, and if you will, break bread together. To allow us to nourish our bodies the way that we need to be able to think different. Now, throughout this podcast, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about things that we eat that can change the way we think and feel. There's a lot of podcasts out there for things like that. And I encourage you to indulge in those and pay attention to how you can nourish your body different to change how you feel. I think it's really important. It's something I have explored. It's something I've done. It's not something I'm going to talk about in the podcast at this point a whole lot. It is something that is important. And I encourage each one of you to be able to indulge in a meal with others, to be able to share time with others. Whether that's someone in your immediate family, whether that's someone you're volunteering with. I remember decades ago driving through a small town, watching a man pushing a bicycle, flying a sign that said, "We'll work for food." I was not from that town. I was not from that area. I had no work for him. And I stopped. And I asked him, "Can I buy you a meal? I'd be happy to sit down with you and share a meal." And he smiles. He says, "No, thank you. I'm good." I think he wanted to work more than what he was hungry that day. And I just saw him as a very interesting spirit I had much to learn from. It's easy to have disdain for people flying a sign, people who are in different economic situation than what we are. It's easy to have disdain for that. It's not comfortable for me to have disdain for that. I try to honor them for where they are, who they are, and what they're doing. Especially when someone can be so honorable that he's not just looking for a handout. He's looking for something to do that day and help someone else. It's amazing when you look beyond the sign what you may see. Open your mind. Change your perception of who some of these people are. And they may be able to help you more than you could ever help them. I know that man decades ago changed my life, the way that I think about people. In general. Not just people flying signs, not just people that say they're hungry, or what you might say are begging for money. There may be something more behind the sign than what you see. And if that's true when someone's on the side of the road, flying a sign, how much more is that true in our lives when we see a sign by somebody and we never look behind the sign that they give us? That sign may be verbal. That sign may be literal. That sign may only be an action. What is behind the sign? There may be fear on the part of that person. There may be disdain. There may be anger. There could be many different emotions. There could be happiness, joy, kindness behind that sign. If we don't stop to look what's behind that sign, we will continue to have disdain for it. And it makes us uncomfortable. It makes us angry, jealous, irritated, whatever terminology you want to use. You could be jealous and not even realize it. There's always time to change. When you first see someone, sometimes that instinct is correct in what you see. And sometimes you're judging them on a sign that's not real. Which is it today? Is it good judgment? You see something you should step back from, not be part of, not participate in? Or is it time to look beyond that sign and realize they're just scared? They need help. They need to be able to see it different so they can feel different. They don't know how to act different. You know, in the past I was talking about how we get uncomfortable and we don't want to change because it's uncomfortable. Well, I'm telling you right now, if you're uncomfortable with making changes, that's good. And you might need to become a little more uncomfortable before you can make the greatest changes of your life. I've heard terminology like, it's always the darkest just before the dawn. I have experienced that in my life. I know how desperate one can feel. I know how it feels like life is so overwhelming, I don't desire to go on. I know what that's like. To say it's uncomfortable is an understatement to the nth degree. It's more than uncomfortable. And the greatest changes come when I endure. So I must keep taking the action. As uncomfortable as it may be to be doing something new. And as I've talked about many times, I'm not talking about uncomfortability of people and their disdain for us and the mistreatment of us. The perception of mistreatment is something different. Sometimes I believe that we think people are treating us a certain way and they don't intend to do that. Maybe both sides could take a look at that. Maybe we realize that we don't have to take it so personal, even though they didn't have the best approach. Sometimes people don't know how to make a good approach. And therefore, we often take it personal. Or maybe we didn't make the best approach, and someone else took it personal. We need to be able to open our minds and know that we can make a better approach next time. Take a look at the approach that we made. Listen to our friends. When they give us a sign, when we talk about an approach that we made, and we ran into a brick wall. It didn't work, and our friends' eyes get big, or their jaw drops. What sign are they giving us? Is it our approach that wasn't good? And that's why it didn't work? As I've talked about timing and approach, I think it's really important. I think sometimes we don't realize that we don't have a good approach. And then someone personalizes it. Then we don't feel good about the situation. And it started with our approach. So we're responsible for how we feel because of the approach that we made or the approach we didn't make. Moving forward, let's make different approaches. Let's try a couple of different things with the same person and see how that reaction is different. Watch for that sign. Watch how they personalize it one time. Watch how one time they receive it better than ever before. Does that mean that your approach is that much better? Chances are. Maybe the timing was better than ever before and you didn't know it. See, sometimes that poor timing has to do with the fact that that person's having a bad day, that they're struggling with something traumatic happened. I didn't say dramatic, I said traumatic. Okay? Because if something traumatic happened, they lost a loved one. One of their young children are sick and they don't know what's wrong. And they keep going to the doctor and the bills are adding up and they don't know how to deal with the finances, and on top of it their child is not getting any better. Could you imagine? And then you come in just talking however you talk and you just make whatever approach and you don't even think that someone could be having a bad day. The person they loved as much as anyone in the world has passed over and returned to the spirit world. And you don't realize it. You don't know it. You just come off the way you always come off, kind of sassy, think you'd be kind of smart and funny. It's not all that funny on a given day. Timing matters. The approach matters. And it will matter so much it will affect how you feel, not just how they feel. Because you'll get a sign from them and they won't tell you. They won't verbalize. They'll tell you through the sign, and now you're baffled and you feel uncomfortable and you don't know why. Let's just begin to make a different approach with people. What if every time we made an approach to someone, we realized they could be having a bad day and we don't know it? And we don't try to start with a one-liner or being funny or sometimes sarcastic, which people think can be funny. I remember at one point in my life, I thought that being sarcastic was as polite as I could be. And because of my own uncomfortability in my lifetime, it was. Because I would fire back hot. I'd come back with one-liners and I'd shoot you down just because I was uncomfortable with who I am. I often did it to try to be funny and bring humor, and that didn't always work. I think about one time I said something to someone at work, and I had made the same approach to hundreds of people. And he didn't like it. And I had an executive come up to me and say, "You can't ever do that again." I said, "It's worked with hundreds of people. It's not a bad approach. I'm inviting them in. I'm being kind and gentle. With this person, it didn't work. I don't think I want to stop doing it. It's worked hundreds of times." I may have refrained from saying that to him. I may have taken it to another executive so that it was understood, not just the way that I intended it, the way I delivered it, and that more than 99 times out of 100, it works. And I continue to do it to this day. and never had that same response again. Another time, I said something to someone that I have said thousands of times to people in the same energy, in the same way, with the same love, dignity, and respect as I've said it to everyone else. And he got up and walked away from me. You can't say that to people. What's the matter with you? Blah, blah, blah. He didn't like it. It wasn't the right approach for him, or the timing wasn't right. Either way, after saying it to thousands of people and having a wonderful response, I'm not that concerned that somebody was having a bad day when I've gotten such a good response from so many people for so long. So I do want to take a look at the approach that I make. Whether I'm volunteering and doing my best to reach out to other people, taking that action that matters to change the way I think, so when I leave I feel different, or the next day I think about where I was volunteering and what I was doing, and I feel good that I can give my time. I think that the approach that you make will be important. I think that the timing that you have will be very important also. And if you're going to begin volunteering in the near future, I suggest that you volunteer at something that's important to you. If you want to volunteer at one of your local missions, one of your local churches, the local temple, the local elder center, the local food shelf, homeless shelter, find something that matters to you. What someone might think a cause that's important to you, whatever terminology you like to use, and start there. You may expand into things that you didn't know that you could do. I reach out to communities that I never imagined I would be able to guide. I do things today, I'm invited in to do things today that are unimaginable a few decades ago. That I could impact the people that I impact in the way that I do. I'm proud of who I'm becoming. I don't say that with arrogance. I say that because I am doing the best I can today as a man to help improve other people's lives, to try to touch their heart, try to attempt to help them know that they can do something different when they choose to, when they make the effort. Maybe do some hard work. And when it's a little uncomfortable, you keep doing it. Because it's uncomfortable to volunteer when you're not used to reaching out to others. It's uncomfortable when you walk into a situation and you don't know what you're doing, how to do it. You need guidance. You don't know exactly what to do. That's uncomfortable. And it's good. Each one of us is a unique manifestation of Creator. We all have our own journey. And if we do our very best to continue to change, it will be important. It'll be important to us as individuals in making the changes we need to feel different. It will be important to the next generation because we will affect them in ways we don't know. Not just people in our own family, the next generation of humans to be walking the earth. I want to be able to have an impact on people. One of the reasons I started this podcast. One of the reasons I started this podcast was to be able to change the way that I think and feel and to hold myself accountable. And truly, I hope that if someone feels like they don't want to live, like they're not enough, that they don't measure up, that they're not part of, that this podcast can help change that. I encourage anyone that feels like they don't want to live and they have a plan to end their life to call a 3-digit number. It is a hotline that can assist you. That 3-digit number is 988. If you know someone who intends to end their life because they don't feel like they're enough or they don't measure up, please encourage them to call this hotline. Sometimes as individuals, we can't do enough for them. We need them to talk to other people who have the terminology and the message that can help them want to go on another day. Again, that 3-digit number is 988. Please help the people that you love. Help the people that love you. Make that phone call if it is necessary. If you have a plan, definitely make that phone call. I hope that each and every one of you get what you need out of all of these podcasts. I hope moving forward we can continue to change the way we think so we can change how we feel. By taking that action, whether that action is going to volunteer, going to help a friend, reaching out to someone, call someone you haven't talked to in a while. Let them know you're thinking about them. Call someone to see how they're doing when you're not feeling well and see what that does for you. Looking forward to next time. Live in harmony with and use the bounty of the land to bring kindness to the world.